This is D Hunter, bringing another action figure review. Today, we're going to look at the McFarlane DC Multiverse DC Classics Darkseid Megafigure. Now, Darkseid is arguably the biggest villain in the entire DC universe, right here in front of us in figure form, and in his more or less classic look. I appreciate that, as this is the look I'd most want him in. I ordered this guy from Figurine For All when I saw they had him in stock. That's a Canadian-based website. I actually missed the pre-order at the McFarlane Toy Store. I think he sold out in like 15-20 minutes. Well, he's finally here, so let's take a look at the packaging. As you can see, DC Multiverse Darkseid. Here he is in the package. Looks like we have 2 heads and a total of 4 hands. I see a collector's card and a display stand. One side of the package, Darkseid DC Classic. Other side, Darkseid. At the bottom, there's his barcode, if that helps. And on the back side, here's a very classic looking image of Darkseid himself. So with no further ado, let's open him up. Alright, now that we have this figure out of the package, here he is with all his accessories laid out. We have a display stand, collector's card, a total of 4 hands, and 2 heads. Before we take a look at all that, let's talk about and check out the figure. So this is Darkseid, arguably the #1 villain in the entire DC universe, and that is a bold statement. He comes from the planet Apocalypse, that's where he rules, but his entire goal is to control, not Earth, but the entire universe, and probably even the entire multiverse. He was created by Jack Kirby, he's the leader of the New Gods, and he's very powerful. Darkseid's powers, he's super strong, almost invincible, and he has these omega beams that come out of his eyes, similar to the heat vision from Superman, but they don't just go in a straight line, they can go all over the place and hit their target. This is him in his classic look, and I appreciate that. So let's take a closer look at the figure. Start with his head here. This is the head with the omega beams. It's like they're just starting. I would love it if they actually gave us true omega beams that were coming in, going in all different directions. That'd be pretty cool. I think that Mezco Darkseid has something like that. He's got this little sort of, I don't know, medallion thing with, looks like a D on it for Darkseid. And he has this cape coming out, and the cape's my only real complaint about him. I feel like he shouldn't have a cape if he's in his classic look. Typically doesn't wear a cape in the comics, but not a big deal. I imagine we'll see some people that are going to remove the cape. Could be done, but it would probably leave maybe some marks, maybe not. You definitely couldn't get rid of this without having a big hole there, I'm sure. His skin has all these veins, and I remember him sort of having a rocky type skin. I don't really remember being very veiny, very muscular, but I could be wrong. Looks like we have single jointed elbows, double jointed knees, those signature thigh-high boots, and that blue outfit. He just looks like he's built like a rock, very thick, very tough. Cape, a very sort of shiny type cape, has a bendy wire on the side, all the way across the bottom, and of course the other side. Very pleased to have this version of Darkseid to replace my Zack Snyder's Justice League movie Darkseid in my multiverse collection. And a closer look at his face and head sculpt. This, of course, is the face with the omega beams. I imagine most people use the other head most of the time that looks a little more normal and standard, but it's cool to have these options. Darkseid, there he is. And here's the figure, broken down as far as he can go, with all of his removable parts detached. And while we have him like this, if anyone wants to remove the cape, it looks like it'd be really easy. We'll just pull that thing up, and you can see it's totally normal, except he'd have to keep that medallion, or I'm sure there's a big hole under there. I also wanted to mention one other thing with this guy. I would assume that maybe originally he was supposed to build a figure, or he has some parts from another figure, and we'll check that out a little later. But he comes apart fairly easily, at least the shoulders. Just a small little tug, they come right out. When taking him out of the package, I was fairly careful. Popped out, pull his hands out, popped out. I mean, they don't like fall off, you can lift them up like this, but they do come out if you pose them fairly easily, so just be warned. Not a huge deal, but a little bit annoying. Now let's check out his accessories. Starting off with the boring stuff. Here's his display stand. Typical display stand we've seen a million times before. It's a black circle, it's very thin, very basic, but effective at the same time. Now for his collector's card. As you can see, it's an image of Darkseid from the comics in his fairly classic look. This particular image, he's wearing his cape. Darkseid, DC Classic. On the back, there is a description. If you want to read that, pause now. Next, let's take a look at his hands. He has a total of 4 of them, 2 left hands and 2 right hands. Here he is with his first pair of hands. These are his fists. And here's his second pair of hands. His right hand is a gripping hand, and his left hand is a pointing hand. Now let's look at his heads. He has 2 of them, one with a stern, normal expression, and one with an angry expression, and the omega beams coming out of his eyes. Here's his first face. This one has the stern, regular expression, red eyes. And here's his alternate head, a little bit angrier, you can see in his teeth, and then it looks like maybe he's getting started or just finished using the omega beams. Now I want to check out the reuse that Darkseid has. And I thought something looked familiar. His arms are reused from Mongol. Of course, they added some stuff to his forearms, etc., but it explains why he has those veiny arms that don't quite match the texturing on the rest of his body. Really just the arms here. Like I said, you can totally see it's the same thing. Maybe it's different from here down. No, it's definitely the same. You can see the same sort of indentations. But they added this bracelet type thing on him and these gloves on him. Beyond that, I don't see any other shared parts. Stomach is different, diaper piece, legs. But you can see on him, he has these veiny arms, and then he doesn't have any of that stuff on the legs or the face. I think they probably could have just made new arms for him and not use those. It's a little bit distracting. Not a big deal. But I knew something was up with them. They looked familiar. Now they've taken a pretty good look at the figure and his accessories. Let's check out his height. And he's a Megafigure, pretty large, oversized deluxe figure. From bottom to the top of his head, standing right at 9 inches tall, which can translate to just under 23 centimeters. And for his articulation, starting with his head, of course, you can rotate side to side. You can look up and down about that far, not really up at all, but down a little bit. You can sort of tilt his head from side to side, but not by much. Shoulders on a ball joint goes out 90 degrees, up, down, around, and if you push too hard, they'll come out very easily. He does not have the butterfly ring between his shoulder and chest, but his shirt thing here is tight enough that it covers up the gap. A single jointed elbow goes in about this far, a little bit less than 90 degrees, with rotation. His wrist can rotate, and it's going to be hinged. His torso looks to be one solid piece. In his waist, he has a ball joint. The figure is very tight down there. You can hear the plastic as they rotate him around, forward and back a little bit. Legs, they go out about this far, almost as a splits, McFarlane style hip joints. Rotation, it's minimal, but there. Legs go forward, not much at all. You will never get this guy to sit down. Then go out about that far. Double jointed knees. And then his ankle. Forward and back. Rotate, like I said, very tight. Tilt rock. And toe articulation. Here's Darkseid on his homeworld of Apocalypse, where he rules and is literally a god. Here's Darkseid standing next to 6 of his parademons. And then here he is, next to a whole flock of parademons. 30 to be precise. Now let's check him out next to some other action figures, starting off with some other Darkseid figures. Here he is, next to 2 other McFarlane DC Multiverse Darkseid Megafigures. These are both from Zack Snyder's Justice League, and I'm pretty fond of the one that's in full armor, but the new one totally dethrones him. And here he is, next to a DC Direct, DC Icons Darkseid. This is a giant deluxe version of Darkseid. It's nice to have a bunch of different options. Then, next to a McFarlane Superpowers Darkseid figure. Here are all the different Darkseid figures that I have, by McFarlane and DC Direct. Now let's check him out, next to some other New Gods or Apocalypse figures. Here he is, next to Calabac, one of his children. Then, next to Orion, another one of his sons, but this guy is actually a good guy, kind of opposes Darkseid. Then, next to Grail, his daughter. I could totally see McFarlane making a version of Grail in the future. And now, next to Desaad, his loyal servant. Here he is, next to a couple of versions of Steppenwolf by McFarlane and Mattel. We've covered most of the New Gods. I'd say the biggest glaring omission is Granite Goddess. They really need to give us one of that. Here's McFarlane's Darkseid, next to McFarlane's Batman as Darkseid, the Darkfather. And here, next to Darkseid is Lex Luthor, or at least possessing or taking him over. Now let's check him out, next to some parademons. These are part of the Mattel DC Multiverse collection. 6-inch scale. They were originally in Toys R Us exclusives, and I'm glad I grabbed a bunch back in the day. Put them to a lot of use since then. And here he is, next to 6 of the Mattel Justice League basic Parademons. These are also 6-inch scale, a tad smaller than the multiverse versions, but still pretty cool, and they were very cheap back in the day. Then, with 6 more Justice League basic Parademons, these are the gray versions, also 6-inch scale. And now, with 6 of the Justice League talking Parademons, these are very similar to the gray ones, but they had a talking feature, which sucked, all the batteries are dead, but they still look pretty cool. Also 6-inch scale. And finally, next to 6 of the blue versions of the Parademons, these are from the Mattel basic Justice League line, and they came in a 2-pack with the Parademon versus Batman. Here's Darkseid, next to a couple of my favorite McFarlane Superman figures. Action Comics 1000 on the left, and Hush on the right. Here's a look at all the different Superman villains that McFarlane has made so far. Finally get to replace the Zack Snyder's Justice League Darkseid with a comic version, and they've really covered the majority of the Superman rogues at this point. If the main ones missing are stuff like Toyman and Parasite, then McFarlane's done a pretty good job covering the basics at this point. Here's Darkseid, next to Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby created Darkseid, the New Gods, and a ton of other influential comic characters. Now let's check him out, next to some other recently released McFarlane DC Multiverse figures. Here he is, next to the 5th Collector's Wave, both regular and Platinum Chase variants of Sergeant Rock, Manga Batman, and Superboy. Here's Darkseid, next to the most recent Platinum Wave, Sportsmaster, New 52 Reverse Flash, and Manhunter. And here he is, next to the 2nd Digital Wave, Green Arrow, Superman, and the Atom. Then, next to the DC Rebirth Tim Drake Robin, and both the Platinum and regular versions of the Cyborg Superman. And now, next to the Target exclusive, Jim Gordon in his rookie suit Megafigure versus Mr. Bloom 2-pack. Here's Darkseid, next to the Target exclusive Metallo and Fire. And here he is, next to the Nightfall Batman vs. Bane 2-pack. Then, next to the Dark Knight trilogy, Morgan Freeman, Lucius Fox. And finally, next to the Joker and Punchline 2-pack. Now let's check him out, next to some action figures from different various companies, so we can see how it fits in both scale and style-wise, in case you want to know which lines you can mix them with. Since he's a McFarlane toy, they're typically the 7-inch scale, and even though this guy is 9 inches tall, he's still a 7-inch scale action figure. I'm going to start off my comparisons with some of the larger action figure lines I collect, and work way smaller. But first, let's check him out with some of his McFarlane Toys brothers. In front of you are 5 different action figure lines, all from McFarlane Toys, all 7-inch scale. And now, with some Jack-specific wrestling figures, and some Diamond Select toys. Here's Darkseid, next to a thing of Daisy Sour Cream. And here he is, with some DC Direct and NECA figures. Then, with both some Mattel and Jazzwares wrestling figures. And now, with some Mezco and Mattel DC figures. Next, with some Mafex and Hasbro Marvel Legends. And finally, next to some SH Figure Arts and some Jazzwares Fortnite figures. So overall, this is a very nice Darkseid figure. I love they went with the classic version, but it can easily fit into your modern comic displays. The color of blue they chose is just fantastic and perfect for him. So here are my complaints. Number 1, the arms pop out very easily, and that is not really that big of a deal, but it's damn sure annoying. And also the cape. As much as I like his cape, I don't think he should have it. I would much prefer this version of Darkseid not to have the cape and to just be the bare, giant, sort of rock version. Beyond that, the figure is very nice. Yeah, the articulation is a little bit limited. The elbows, the hips, etc. He's very tight around the waist. But he doesn't need to be this super posable figure. He's just a big force. It's kind of like Michael Myers. He'll walk as slow as he needs to, but he's going to get the job done. If I were to rate this figure, well, his accessories are pretty cool. I like the alternate head with the Omega beams. I like the fact that you have a couple different options with the hands. Sculpt and paint job, very nice. Articulation, kind of weak. The only thing I wish he came with would be some longer Omega beams. So if I were to rate him, first thought, it's a fantastic figure, 8.5. But the arm thing is kind of annoying, so I'll bump him down to an 8. Still a very solid release. Probably the best Darkseid figure out yet. I'm a huge fan of the Mattel Build-A-Figure version, but I don't have him, and I still think this one would beat him. So if you want this figure, get him. He's going to be very expensive in the long run, I have a feeling. So this is D Hunter. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked the video, press like below. If you have anything you want to say with the video, add to the comment section. If you want to see additional action figure reviews from me, press subscribe. I do appreciate when you do that. Once again, this is D Hunter. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll talk to you guys real soon.